Testing out sound. Will, can you hear me okay? If you're there, you might have walked away.
Yes, I can hear you.
And there's no echo. I have two computers going, so just want to make sure.
No echo.
Perfect. All right, thank you.
Welcome.
Also, hi everyone, welcome. It is a little bit early, so we probably won't get started here until afternoon. So sit tight, but thank you for joining us. We'll get started in a bit. Hi everyone, welcome. Welcome. We're almost at noon here. I know we still have a handful of people rolling in, so we might give it a couple more minutes. We won't get started any later than 12:03. So hang on tight. Thank you for spending your lunch hour with us, and we'll get started in just a minute here. Hello, for everyone who's just hopping on, thank you so much for joining us. I want to give folks just 2 more minutes to hop on the call before we get started. We do have a lot to cover. Lots of exciting things going on with Isle of Park Day this year, as you all might be familiar, but happy to tell you more. But we'll get started here in 2 more minutes, so hang tight. Alrighty, it is 12:03, so let's get started because we do have a lot to cover. I know people will continue to roll in, and we have all of this recorded, so hopefully that won't be an issue for folks. But welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Rebecca, can you hear me okay before I keep blabbering? Okay, great. So hopefully you are here because you are planning an I Love My Park Day event. So this webinar is for anyone organizing an event this year, public lands staff, members of a local friends group. A lot of you, I see a lot of familiar names today, but there are some new folks. So for those who don't know, I Love My Park Day is the largest single day outdoor volunteer event in New York State, and we will be celebrating our 13th anniversary this year on Saturday, May 4th. So whether this is your first or your 13th I Love My Park Day, we're very excited to celebrate with you this year. And if you've hosted multiple events in the past and you're wondering why you need to join for this webinar, there are a handful of updates that are happening this year. We want to make sure all hosts are informed before you start planning your event. We also have plenty of examples of exciting project ideas from last year that were shared with us from hosts if you're looking for some inspiration. So if that's not a good enough reason to stick around, I don't know, well, you can check out the recording, but we're happy you're here today. So just to briefly go over the agenda, we're going to discuss what is Alumni Park Day, how does it work, briefly share some highlights from last year, and then we want to dive into how Alumni Park Day will look a little bit different. It's not going to look too different from last year, but just a couple changes we want hosts to be aware of. We'll go over some of the promotion methods that we use to promote Alumni Park Day across the state. We will talk about projects, different project ideas, new project ideas that you might not be familiar with. We will go over some resources that are available to you. And then we'll talk a little bit about the volunteer registration process and some next steps and tips. So as I mentioned, we do have a lot to cover in the next hour, but let's just do some basic housekeeping so you can navigate this this webinar a little bit better. I know most of you are probably familiar with meetings. I haven't done a webinar in a little bit, but so the difference with webinar is you can use the Q&A feature or the chat feature to talk with us. So feel free to use either of those, whatever you're comfortable with. We will be monitoring both. You can use that chat feature to message either Rebecca or I. Rebecca Murray's on the call. She is our program manager at PTNY. We also have Will Cote. He's our senior director of public lands. So they are on the call to help you all with anything you may need. And I'm Shayna Hogan. I don't know if I mentioned that, but senior manager of programs and grants. But we're all here to help you out. So we will be stopping in a few specific places to address any questions you might have. And if we don't get to it today, we'll do our best to follow up with you in the upcoming days. So I mentioned this earlier, this is being recorded. We will share out. You can share out with any of your partners that weren't able to make it here today. And then we will also share some resources after as well. So especially for those of you who are new to Alumni Park Day, why do we do this? Why hold an Alumni Park Day event? So this event began in response to the threat of state park closures in 2010. So there was tremendous public outcry and support for parks. And PTNY and New York State Parks wanted to find a method for capturing that enthusiasm in an ongoing way, which led us to Alumni Park Day. Today, luckily, that threat of closures is no longer looming. Visitations nearly at 84 million alone at state parks and historic sites. That is significantly higher if we include all our public lands. So luckily, we don't still have that threat, but Alumni Park Day does give New Yorkers the opportunity to continue to give back to these spaces that have really been a lifeline for them. And especially during this 100th birthday of our state park system. Hopefully folks are familiar, but New York State Parks is celebrating its centennial year this year. Another bonus for getting out and helping these spaces. So, and then one thing we really like to focus on during this webinar particularly is for friends groups hosting events. So Alumni Park Day is an opportunity for friends groups of New York State Parks, DEC lands to really strengthen their organizations by tapping into this statewide event. With lots of resources available, you become part of a larger effort and you can reach new volunteers and potential supporters. So we'll talk about how to capitalize on that later in this webinar. So let's talk a little bit about all the exciting work you did last year, all the hard work you put in last year for this event. So with all of your help, we hosted 154 different projects across the state. This is fantastic. We had 5,000 plus volunteers dedicating 20,000 hours to a variety of cleanup, beautification projects. And we were able to give back to our state lands at a time where they were experiencing record visitation and really need our love most. And we did have a beautiful day last year, which was great. I think it was sunny and warm. The year before that, we had torrential downpour. So it was a nice break for folks last year. And we will have the same this year, I promise. Some sunshine. I'm putting it out into the ether. But this is another snapshot of what you guys have, what you did last year. So this was based on feedback provided by 35 sites. So we had 154 sites participate. So this really, demonstrates the value of sharing that feedback after the event, because these numbers would be significantly higher if we could capture all that information from hosts. So if you're hosting an event, I know when I Love My Park Day is done, you kind of just want to shut it down and get it over with. But by providing this information, you can really help capture our collective impact. So now I'm going to turn it over to Rebecca to talk a little bit more about some of the exciting changes we have this year and then some of our roles in this event.
Thanks, Shana. Clearly, based on that statistic, the I Love My Park Day and carrying out this event is certainly a collaborative effort. So for anyone who's not familiar with kind of the cooks in the kitchen, who's doing what and when, I wanted to kind of go over the brief breakdown of the players involved between PTNY, the Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation, and the Department of Environmental Conservation. We kind of formed this collective and have brought in the New York State Canal Corporation even more this year. And we'll get into that a little bit later. Together, we're the ones coordinating things like the statewide promotion efforts, press releases, and then of that kind of media outreach. PTNY is also kind of the central clearinghouse with the website. We're hosting volunteer and host registration. You can go there and find any information you might need related to the event. We're also on the back end trying to get money. We're the ones looking for sponsorships. They're helping us cover t-shirt costs, et cetera. We're the ones developing resources for the organizers and kind of serving as that middleman between, you know, the host and volunteers and fielding any inquiries. But most importantly, the friends groups and the park staff are all the folks on the ground kind of doing everything on the day of. You're the face of the event, and you're the ones that make a real difference on the day of. Let's see, we can go, yeah, great. So Shana had alluded to some of the changes this year, again, not significant, but we wanted hosts to be aware of. So this Love Our New York Lands campaign is really this year especially going to house several themed events. We have kind of 3 new events this year that will all be deemed and kind of land under that umbrella of Love Our New York Lands in the summer and fall, and we'll get into those events a little bit later. The next change to registration, we are using the same registration system, so there's nothing new there. It's still partnered with Resport that'll host event organizers as well as volunteers. It's user-friendly, we hope, and of course we can answer any questions that you might have on it, but hopefully it'll make your role as a host a little bit easier. So this Love Our New York Lands campaign, this may not be new to some of you. For others, this is one of our ways that we're kind of hoping to refresh I Love My Park Day. We're trying to integrate more DEC sites and facilities and also really kind of foster this idea that stewardship should go beyond just that one day participation. It's kind of a mantra that we want to see carried throughout the year. In 2024, we're going to continue to incorporate this branding and messaging, and again, fostering that commitment to love our New York lands and stewardship and volunteerism on a year-long basis and beyond. The campaign was created by DEC and state parks as kind of this response to an increase in visitation that obviously led to a lot of kind of more wear and tear on our public lands. So this idea, this concept and it's on the screen here, to encourage visitors to think about themselves as responsible for helping protect these irreplaceable destinations for future generations, and that these lands are shared by everyone. We need to all take care of them. The additional stewardship days, this is very exciting, and we've been talking about it now for a little while internally. We want everyone to be able to give back to their communities, their public lands in different ways. So whether that's seeking out, site-specific places to steward. We want to build on the success of I Love My Park Day and stewardship and volunteerism throughout the year. So we're introducing this new suite of events. Like I had mentioned earlier, the New York State Canal Corporation is now joining us as an agency partner and is kind of kicking off this suite of events with Canal Clean Sweep, which will be held the weekend of Earth Day. So that's April 19th through 21st, followed by, of course, I Love My Park Day. Crazy to think that's only really like a little over 7 weeks away. And then in the fall, which is really cool, the Adirondack and Catskills Park Day, which is tentatively set for September the 7th, and Fish and Wildlife Day for September the 28th. We're still kind of working out the details of these events, and this is kind of insider baseball at the moment, so we would love for you to kind of keep these details to yourselves for now. We expect to send a press release, and once that goes live, you'll all hear about it, and we would love for you to share it around. That said, if you've traditionally hosted an I Love My Park Day event, but you feel like some of these new events are better suited or benefit your site more, feel free. You can host an I Love My Park Day event or another one of these events. I think the thing to keep in mind is to always be in touch with your site or park manager about your goals and kind of what you envision for your site for this event. But the hope for these new events is really to allow more people to participate, allow for more stewardship projects. Obviously, the continuation throughout the calendar year gives the flexibility between, warmer months and the fall season. And then just to more broadly, just expand and engage more audiences. So again, if you have any questions about any of these things, feel free, PTNY staff, parks, DEC, we're all available to answer any questions you might have. And I'm going to turn it back to Shayna to talk about event registration.
Yes, thank you, Rebecca. We are very excited about those additional events this year. We do hope, we've received feedback in the past that May 4th is not always the best time for sites to host an event, and we heard that, and we really wanted to make this, we don't want to lose sites. We want to incorporate as many people, as many projects as possible, and so this is our attempt at that. So event registration, let's shift gears a little bit. So event registration has been open for about a week now. I think we opened on March 6th. If you have not got a link for that, please reach out. You should have received an e-blast with a link to register, as well as some basic instructions for filling out the registration form. If you hosted an event last year, we've mentioned this, you will be familiar with the registration process. We're using Resport, which was founded nearly 20 years ago by Jeff Henderson, an event director in the Finger Lakes region. So we will not, again, like last year, we will not have a public link to register on our website. This helps to ensure that everyone who's registering an event on state lands is authorized to do so. So if you haven't received that link, please send me an email or send us an email at that ilovemypark@ptny.org, and we can chat on why you might have missed that this year. And we can share that if you are authorized to host an event on public lands. So when you do get that link, it will take you to this map that you see in front of you here. I know those yellow dots look incredibly small here, but they are more visible on the map when you get there. And you will use that search bar on the bottom to search for your site, and left click to register. It will register the site. It'll take you to fill out a brief form with basic information for volunteers, and you will receive a confirmation email. So getting that confirmation email and registering doesn't necessarily put your PIN directly on this map. We will have to review your information. If it's on a DEC land or municipal park land, we want to make sure that you are authorized to host on that land before publishing to the map. And that this map is what volunteers will see when they go to register. So once volunteer registration goes live in April, we will talk more about that later. They will be able to go to this map, zoom in, find an event near them, and register for your distinct site. So after registration, so one of the most exciting reasons why we're continuing to use Resport is that this registration system offers real-time interactive participant lists and maps. So what does that mean? That means that once volunteer registration is live, I can provide each of you a specific link you can use to see an updated list of volunteer information for your event in real time. That means you don't have to rely on me to send you updated list. You can use that link anytime and see who is registered for your event. We hope this will save you some time and also act as a good planning tool for you as you get closer to May 4th. We also hope that you'll use it to communicate regularly with your volunteers about specific projects, reminders, any updates you might have. And this also means that instead of putting every last detail about parking, meeting location on your registration form, you can email this all to volunteers ahead of time. So if you don't have that information yet, you just want to get your event up there, you can update your volunteers because you will have access to that information anytime you want it. All right, let's talk t-shirts. Everyone loves t-shirts, right? We shall see. But this year, I have to make it clear, we do have a limited supply. We did have to purchase in February just to make sure that everything got here in time. So we do have a limited supply of t-shirts. Priority will be given to events hosted on OPRHP and DEC lands by Park and Site staff and or friends groups. I know this is not ideal for some of our local partners, but DEC and OPRHP are partners in this event. And so priority has to go to those sites. If there are still shirts available when we get closer to shipping, they will be distributed based on registration date. So registering your event as soon as possible will put you near the top of that list. So if we only get a handful, if we get less sites and we have more t-shirts available, we're happy to distribute what we do have available. We do ask that you do not request more t-shirts than an anticipated number of volunteers for this reason. We have had sites with plenty of leftover shirts in the past when they could have gone to sites that really needed them. So if you're only expecting 30 volunteers, please don't request 50 shirts. We will be monitoring registration carefully and we will adjust and let you know. The alternative, if you are worried about not having enough t-shirts for volunteers, if you are hosting an event on non-DEC or OPRHP land, we can send you the t-shirt design. And, I've seen folks partner with local vendors in the past to get t-shirts, maybe at a discounted rate. Maybe you can get them to sponsor, put their name on the back. There are options, so I can share that with you ahead of time. Or if you just think, I might want 20 extra shirts and we don't have those available, you can also grab those. Oh, I have more about t-shirts, sorry. Okay, so one thing that has changed with registration this year regarding t-shirts, in the past, we have asked hosts to identify different sizes that they will need. This year, we're just asking you to tell us how many shirts you will need, and we are asking volunteers during registration to designate their preferred t-shirt size. We made the switch based on loads of feedback from hosts that it was hard to guess ahead of time what size shirts potential volunteers would need. Most of the time, you're getting completely random folks signing up for your event. You don't know what size t-shirt they want. Maybe they seem small and they really just want a large t-shirt. So that we're putting that on volunteers this year to kind of identify. We're also making it very clear that just because they picked a preferred t-shirt doesn't mean it will be available, but at least this gives them the option and we can be a little bit more accurate. We do encourage folks, if you're hosting an event and you want to also share your t-shirt size, just sign up for volunteer registration and identify that, and then we can have an accurate count. That's what I'm encouraging folks to do. One thing I also want to note for registration of t-shirts is that we cannot deliver to a PO box. I know, you might have received packages to them in the past, but our vendor will not deliver to PO boxes. So please make sure you're providing an address where we can ship shirts that isn't PO. And then I think we've had 40 events registered so far, and a handful of you haven't put your full address. So please make sure there's a city included and a zip code. So we have that full address. We don't want to guess where you are in the state. And then most exciting, I think, is that we will be using the same shirt for all 4 of our New York Lands events, which is great. So if you participate in Canal Clean Sweep, Isle My Park Day, Adirondack Catskill Day, Fish and Wildlife Day, this is the same t-shirt you will receive. So the logo you're looking at on the screen, that is most likely going to be the front of our t-shirts. So that'll demonstrate that these are all of our New York Lands events. It'll demonstrate all 4 of them, the agencies and PTNY that are hosting. And then on the back, we'll have those dates listed as well as those events, and then some sponsorship information. But we will be using that one t-shirt for everything. And shout out to the graphic designer at DEC who created this logo, because there's a lot of logos to incorporate and we think they did a great job. I'm going to stop here for any questions. Let's see. Tamara, a good question. I see if you're asking volunteers to provide sizes for their shirts, when is the cutoff so you can ship them in time for their event? That is a great question. So let me follow up with you on an exact date. I mean, the cutoff will be the time that, a week before we actually need to ship them. But I can provide that to you in the follow-up email. And I will also note that, I promise, during volunteer registration, so everybody knows. Okay. David, I know that people like to get their t-shirt. A good percentage of people sign up in the last week. I assume they're watching the weather forecast. Yes. Okay. Plan for shipping out t-shirts for the requested sizes set near the event. If folks don't register ahead of time, we're going to backfill with what we have. And that's how it's going to work. We tell folks during registration, we cannot guarantee you will get your preferred t-shirt size. It's just getting us closer to getting accurate sizes. But if they didn't register in time to ship it, we're just going to backfill with the number that you requested. So if you need 30 shirts, we've only had 15 folks fill out their preferred sizes. We're just going to backfill with what's actually available. Okay. Those committed early should get their t-shirts, not the one who arrived earliest to the event. Yeah, Dave, I believe the link that we send around does have the date that they registered on it. So for those who might not be seeing this, they're asking preference for shirts should be given to folks who register early. I fully agree. I think, that link that I mentioned earlier that we will send out to all hosts will contain that information of when folks registered. So you will be able to provide that for folks. Are there any other questions? Will, Rebecca, did I miss anything on here? Okay, great. Let's move on to promotion and projects because that's exciting information. So on the screen here are just some of the ways we promote I Love My Park Day and all the events at the statewide level on a regular basis. We post it all across our website, e-news, email blasts, social media. The same goes for OPRHP, our friends at State Parks and TEC share it on their social media. We often do collaborative posts. It will go out in e-newsletter. We are hoping to get, as Rebecca mentioned, a press release out from the governor's office highlighting the slate of Love Our New York Lands events. We're hoping that will go out soon, but we will also send out some press releases for the additional events as we get closer to them. And then our sponsor promotions, we promote our sponsors, but also they share out a lot of our stuff on social media too, so that helps spread the word. We also connect with state legislators and local news outlets. Our state legislators are often very interested in participating in I Love My Park Day. And that's one thing we encourage hosts to do as well, is to connect with your state legislators if you're hosting an event with a morning program. And we will talk more about that in a little bit too. But a lot of times we do get state legislators out to events in their district, which is exciting. And then of course the t-shirts are promotional, and then posters we will be putting together as well. And then I'll turn it over to Rebecca to talk about some projects.
Thanks, Shana. Yeah, so I mean, in my mind, promotion, especially on your end, it would be great if you knew of some kind of flagship projects that your group always does that can obviously be included in your messaging. So that said, I want to talk about some of the popular projects and give groups more ideas and inspiration. At the end of the day, it's really what your site or park needs, what will help attract visitors, and what would make the best use of volunteer time. You have a dedicated audience. So what do you need? What would be impactful? So I Love My Park Day is certainly going to be a great way to kind of get ready for the busy season, the warm weather, although the capital region's beautiful right now. I think it's going to be like 70 degrees. So people might have actually been out in your parks and sites more often this unbelievably warmer winter. So you might have some more spring cleaning jobs to do. So cleaning up debris, planting flowers, cleaning and painting, removing invasives. Those are anything that you can do to spruce up your site. And they're going to be great because they're going to be kind of suitable for people of all ages and abilities, and they'll have a huge impact. Last year, we had the Hamlin Beach State Park help set up picnic tables and fire rings for 260 sites. If you're planning on doing a planting, we highly encourage groups to use native plants. We had Diane from the Friends of Old Croton Aqueduct share a spreadsheet with us where you can find sources that offer local ecotype plants. I'm just going to throw that link in the chat here. But this resource could hopefully be useful for those considering that kind of project. Other projects that can help enhance public access. Obviously, access means more people can enjoy your site and its resources. It might include trail enhancement projects, making trails ADA compliant. You can install or repair rails, stairs, ramps. Last year at Southwick Beach State Park, the volunteers installed Moby mats. I believe that's posted. Yeah, it's pictured here. Folks with wheelchairs, walkers, strollers, they can get to the beach more easily. As any parents that know, a stroller on a beach is not easy. We also had at Minnewaska State Park Preserve, the volunteers created a 70-foot long turnpike on the trail. This trail had been suffering from widening in a wet, especially wet area of the trail. So this effort made it more accessible for people. Obviously, these projects take a little bit more planning with 7 weeks out. We need some brain power there. We need a staff who's kind of knowledgeable of how these projects work, how and kind of the timeline and events. So definitely start planning now. Partnering for stewardship projects. We know that these events bring out large crowds. So you have municipalities nearby, you have organizations and groups. You know, some of these projects might take more than 1 day to complete, or work that you started here could kind of build on a year-long plan. We had last year, the Friends of Old Croton Aqueduct actually partnered with Hastings Pollinator Pathway, the Garden Club of Irvington, and Rivertown Neighbors to plant 9 native shrubs and remove non-native grasses and additional invasives. So they worked to establish Hastings Pollinator Pathway 5 Corners community garden to ensure that there'd be continued maintenance and expand the good work that had been done throughout the year. We also had the Friends of the Genesee Valley Greenway work with neighboring communities, the trail towns, as they're called, to host a number of fence paintings. I know that the yellow gates are kind of iconic, and it's a project that they like to do year after year, but bringing in the trail towns kind of gave a face to the Friends and then some notoriety for the trail towns in and around that corridor. So definitely start thinking about which community partners you can engage for this work. And in kind of making those partnerships, you can also think about how the project will unfold. We want you to kind of be mindful of some best practices. For sure, we had mentioned, you know, making projects suitable for people of all ages and abilities, thinking about things like litter removal and trail maintenance or raking and plantings tend to be kid-friendly. And so just to have that as kind of a staple at your event is probably a good idea. These volunteers want to be put to work. I know my family and I have showed up to people's plenty of times, and you know, doing the work that needs to be done is why we're there. So put us to work. Visible projects, those are going to be huge. We know that people like to come back to their site. They often do come back to their site, and so doing a project that they can come back and feel proud of and say, I did that, is going to be a real draw. We've received, you know, feedback through participants. One person had said that they enjoyed the gate paintings because they could come back to the site and actually see the project, and it brought them joy. So that's kind of a huge part of this event, is bringing people joy. As stated, you know, these events don't need to happen in 1 day. You can start something at I Love My Park Day, and it can be a kind of a continuation throughout the calendar year. If you're able and with time constraints and kind of capacity, you can also consider small construction projects. So a small pedestrian bridge, kiosks, bird blinds, bike racks, signage. These are all things that obviously, if you have the materials on hand and the staff to assist, they end up being incredibly impactful. At Minnewaska State Park Preserve last year, we had volunteers dug holes with the post hole diggers. They installed cedar posts for trail markers through the field of section of trail. So don't underestimate what the volunteers can do. If you have the wherewithal to teach, they can learn. So we highly encourage creativity at your park and site, and to just really think about what your site needs the most and how the volunteers can help support you. A lot of information, a lot of really cool projects have happened. So I think we'll pause here for questions if anyone has any.
Yes. So I see, oh, John, hi also for joining this, but John has a question about liability and waivers. So yes, do we provide volunteer registration forms on day of, or does PTNY registration process do that? Yes to both. So one, we do ask during registration, during volunteer registration, when folks sign up, they will have to sign a waiver and a photo release, which is great. It's one of the reasons you should encourage folks to register through our process. So you don't have to worry about those waivers during the day of. However, we do know that some people are just out enjoying the day on a Saturday, have no idea that this event is happening, and stumble across and say, oh, that looks like fun. I'd love to participate. For that reason, we encourage all hosts to have a few flyers on hand, or not flyers, sorry, waivers and photo releases. Those will be available on our website. I don't know if we have the updated 2024 versions yet. We're still about 2 months out, so we'll make sure we have those available for you as you head into your event. And that's a great segue because we're going into resources, but want to make sure we cover anything else we have in here. Mary mentioned volunteers pick up t-shirts at the park. Yes, I think that was a continuation from the question from last round, but yes, volunteers will pick up t-shirts at the park. We will not ship them to them ahead of time. We are shipping all shirts to you and you will distribute them. But the link that we share with you should let you know what size they have requested and if they opted out of a t-shirt, which is another thing that folks can do. Lauren Miller asked, can you say more about Adirondack and Catskill Park Day? I wish I could, Lauren. I truly wish I could. We don't have much more information outside of that at this moment in time. It is tentatively scheduled for September 7th and will be focused on sites that are within those two regions, the Adirondacks and the Catskills, forest preserves, wildlife management centers, different trails. It's going to be a lot of DEC sites, primarily focused on DEC sites. I know Laura DeBetta, Director of Outdoor Recreation at DEC, is facilitating this and putting that together. So there will be a little bit more information once the press release goes out, and we'll continue to update folks. I will say that we do have, I'm going to put it in the chat now, we have a landing page for these events. We will continue to update it as we get closer. So you'll find any information that we have available here at this ptny.org/love New York lands. So once we have it, you will know.
Hey, Shayna, regarding Adirondack Catskill Park Day and
Yes.
Wildlife Day, those would follow a similar cadence as Island My Park Day and Clean Sweep. You'd be using the same portal for registration, things like that?
Yes, so not the same as Canal Clean Sweep. Canal Clean Sweep is running on a different registration system, but for I Love My Park Day, it's basically a copy paste as far as registration goes. We will be hosting registration. We will be providing waivers, photo release, have folks sign up, address their preferred t-shirt size, all of that. So what we're doing for I Love My Park Day will be the same that we're going to do for the additional events there. Yes. Is there anything else I missed here? Nope. All right. Let us continue on. So resources for organizers. So I know that many of you are familiar with the resources we have available for organizers, but just in case, right now, there are 2 different places you can find these resources. Everything can be found on the I Love My Park Day website, ptny.org/ilovemypark. We also have been sharing resources, updates about I Love My Park Day and Love Our New York Lands on the Friends Group Gateway. I did not put it here. Maybe someone can drop a link in the chat for the gateway. But if you become a member today, it's totally free to join. There are forums that are dedicated just for these events. So we update you with anything that we have. That means important dates. That means any resources that become available. So we do share those with all our members on the gateway as well. We have been working hard to make sure that these resources for you are up to date and available. The ones that are not updated will be available by April. If this is your first year planning an event, we do strongly recommend you look over our organizer's manual. It is very comprehensive. It's not all specifics are 100% up to date. I think there's still some Cuomo era language in there, but we created it back then. But it does have the bones are accurate. We also have our top 10 tips and a lot of templates to help make your event a success. This includes letters for sponsors, letters for thank yous for participants. We have sample morning day of checklists that you can use to make sure you have all your ducks in a row, certificates, flyers, different types of flyers, those will be on there, wayfinding signage with direction. And then of course, we will add the logos, especially these Lever New York Land logos, the new mock-ups that you can use for t-shirt designs and all of that. Or if you're putting anything together online and want to incorporate that new language or those new logos, that will be available to you as well. On the flip side of that, if you have an idea for a resource that would be beneficial for your event, please let us know. Or if you have a resource that you love, you use it every year, and you want to share it out because you think it could benefit more than just your organization, please share that with us. We can add it to our website. We can add it to the gateway. We can share it out with 150 plus hosts across the site. So that would be lovely. Let's switch gears a little bit, talk about volunteer registration. I know we started talking about that a little bit during our last question and answer session, but volunteer registration will open in early April. So please register your events by March 29th in order to give us ample time to promote your event to volunteers. We will accept events registered after this date, but we will just have less time for promotion and less time to help you secure volunteers. So we encourage folks to get their events in earlier. And the earlier you register, the more likely you are to be able to get t-shirts, as I mentioned before. Volunteer registration will be on the same platform as event registration. That makes it relatively easy for you and for your volunteers. As I mentioned to John's question earlier, waivers and photo release will be available. I will say this, the waivers and photo release that we have are only applicable for volunteers at New York State Parks, historic sites, and DEC lands. This is a waiver created for those two agencies. So you might want to consider checking with wherever you're hosting your event, whoever owns that land, it might help you create a waiver for that additional land. So local events, this waiver will not cover your volunteers, but we can help you work with your municipality to figure that out. Let's see. Yeah, so registration will require all volunteers to electronically sign those two things, the waiver and the photo release, which takes the pressure off you to collect this information. And as I mentioned, we do encourage you to have copies on hand day of. Okay. So there are a few things to highlight once more for volunteer registration this year that should be familiar if you hosted an event last year. So we talked about real-time access to volunteer info. This will be a custom link that I will provide to you once volunteer registration is live. So keep that in mind. Group registration, I know we received feedback about this in the past. There is no formal process for group registration again this year. Groups will be asked to register each member of their group individually while noting what group they're associated with. So this change was driven by feedback we received from hosts and should really help you keep an accurate count and information for all volunteers. It also guarantees that everyone has filled out the proper waiver and photo release form that are necessary for participating in this event. We've set up the volunteer registration so that when the number of volunteers registered matches your maximum number of volunteers that you designated during registration, that registration will close for your site. I can reopen it if you're like, we have a little bit more wiggle room. I can reopen it, but that way we don't get a bunch of people signing up for your event once you're at your capacity that you identified. And we were unable to do that when we were doing group registration because if someone identified they had 10 folks, there was no way to put in the system that actually reflected that number. So I know group registration was an issue last year. The one thing I can say about group registration that I want to add is because I heard from some folks, yes, it was more difficult to register as a group last year. That was intentional. But we don't want to deter groups from registering. You can make it easy. You can register for a group if you know is coming and you have their information. You can fill out the volunteer registration form for them to make it a little bit easier. We also, if you know a big group is coming and they're just not filling out they don't want to fill out the registration form, you can have those, just make sure you have those waivers and photo releases on site day of. And then also make sure you're notifying us that a big group is coming. We want to make sure we have accurate numbers of who's participating day of. So if you have a Boy Scout troop coming and they decided not to register and you have the correct forms, just make sure you let us know so that we can update our total there. Two things to note about t-shirts. We already mentioned, but t-shirts can choose a preferred size and they can opt out of a t-shirt. And a handful of folks, more than I was expecting last year, actually decided to opt out of t-shirts. So that was great. Let's see. So just to walk you through a little bit through the process, when volunteers go to register, they will navigate to our website. That link will be available on our website. The link to host is not public online, but our map and link to register will be, so we can just drive folks to that website and they will be able to find your site, find the region, and register for an event. They will be able to see all the projects that you have available, but they will not be able to register for a specific project. I think everyone's a little bit familiar with this, but they will be able to register for your event. And then you can either pre-sort them before using, you know, via email, or you can just assign them to a project day of, but they will not be able to specifically register for a certain project. Yes. I think I mentioned all of these things, so we're gonna skip that. That was a lot of information regarding volunteer information, volunteer registration. So I'm going to open it up for questions here. Okay. Oh, what color are the t-shirts this year? That is a great question. Do we sit on this? No, I can tell you guys because you are insiders, but the shirt this year will be Heather Royal, which is a very lovely blue. That is happening. All right, since they're using that's a great question, Dave. I actually hadn't thought about that. Since we're using the same t-shirt for all the events, can it be mentioned on volunteer registration that if people are doing multiple events, they can opt out for the later events? Yes, that is great. We will make sure we encourage all our Canal Clean Sweep participants to wear their t-shirt and opt out for Isle of My Park Day, because it is the exact same t-shirt, and we will make sure to do the same for the additional events. So thank you, Dave. I'm putting that in my arsenal right now. Okay, Mary, on the site provided, it shows flyers for 2023. Yes, that is what I was referring to when I meant that the resources are not all fully updated yet. We do not have a 2024 flyer yet. It's not quite ready. We're working on that with our partners at Parks and TEC to make sure that is buttoned up before we put it on the website. Kathleen, this question's not for Isle of My Parks. Yes, this is not a question for Isle of My Parks, but we can follow up with you on this about reporting wildlife. I think that the answer to this question is it depends where you've been seeing it. It depends what land. If it's on state park land, you probably want to report it to someone different than if you're seeing it on DEC land. Yes, that is, I think that's the agency specific question depending on the land. All right. Does anyone have any other questions? We're starting to get into the end here. Nope. Okay. Let's move on. So we are 2 months out, which is very exciting and also a little terrifying, but mostly exciting. So as I mentioned, lots of tips and organizers manual, lots of templates, promotional printouts. With just over 2 months left, here's a few things you might want to think about now if you haven't already. So you want to get the word out, promote your event. So once registration opens around April 3rd, that's really the time to start promoting your event locally, but you can start even earlier if you want. You could start by posting save the date announcements, putting up a flyer in the park, on your website, newsletter, certainly on social media. The organizer's manual has lots of tips and ideas for outreach and promotion. We encourage folks to reach out to your membership, recruit volunteers for your event, as well as promote your event to the broader community. So know that you won't be getting t-shirts from us until we get closer to the event, but that is another way to promote it. If you have had groups that have always supported your site at past I Love My Park Day events, you might want to consider reaching out to them now to see if they want to participate. This could be faith-based organizations, university clubs, scouts, other youth groups. Pro tip I received through feedback last year was that National Honor students and Eagle Scouts both have community service hours to log. If you know those communities, those folks are looking for places to volunteer. So reach out to them. One incentive to keep in mind when promoting your event, I don't have it on the screen here, but part of New York State's Centennial Celebration is the Centennial Challenge. So the Centennial Challenge provides extra incentives for volunteers. I Love My Park Day is one of the 100 activities that folks can participate in to enter the run-in to get some more swag. So we encourage folks to get out, but there's a checklist in the Centennial Challenge of 100 activities. I Love My Park Day is one of them. So if you want to encourage folks to get out, just give them a little bit more of an incentive, you can mention the Centennial Challenge. The poster I have on the screen here, this is that the Friends of Allegheny State Park created this last year, and I think it's wonderful. It highlights some of their local sponsors. It mentions the projects that they're doing. It highlights the Friends group. Their logo is on there. It gives an accurate website, talks about the Friends groups, and then gives actual information for volunteers. So I think, talking about gold standards for posters, this really helps for folks. It gives some great information. See. Oh, not done yet. Sorry. Speaking of sponsors, now is the time you want to reach out to those local businesses for financial or in-kind donations to help support your event. Really think about what you will need to have a successful I Love My Park Day. So just some ideas of businesses to reach out to. Local media partners can provide free advertising. Local home improvement and hardware stores can provide supplies and tools. I know I keep picking on the Friends of Old Croton Aqueduct, but they always send me so much good information from their events. But they had 3 professional corporations participating last year, including Save a Tree, who provided equipment, an arborist with 2 crew members, an invasive species management company that had folks training and teaching volunteers, and a landscape company and a professional stone mason. So they set all these people out ahead of time because they knew what projects they were working on and got the professionals in there to help them actually make a huge difference on day of when you have that manpower. Garden centers and nurseries, they can provide tools, flowers, plants, mulch. I know that Jay Heritage Center last year had a sponsor that donated 200 native shrubs and perennials, which is amazing, and they all found a home. So they gave those out to their volunteers as well as planted some, which is very exciting. You can look at local print shops, graphic designers to develop some promotional materials. If you decide our flyers are not up to your standard, you want a different one, you want one more focused on your event specifically, like this one from Allegheny, that's a good place to look if you're not graphically designed, inclined, I guess. Outdoor retailers can donate gear or raffle, other giveaways. Lots of different event organizers provide food, refreshment, snacks. You can look to your local grocery store. Last year, the Friends of Hamlin Beach were able to get their local Lions Club to provide donuts, coffee, pizza, and their main grocery store to provide water. So really just, look out to your local businesses. Sponsors are often interested in visibility, so think of what you can provide them. You can acknowledge them in press releases, social media, display their name and logo as a sponsor at the event. Maybe you create a banner. You could invite them to say a few words at a kickoff event, or you could present them with a framed certificate even of appreciation that they can display on their at their business, and that's a resource available to you on our website. So as always, please feel free to contact us if you want to walk through some ideas or troubleshoot some issues you're encountering. We're always here to help. Right, running a little bit late here, but next steps when you're 1 month to go, Continue those local promotions. Again, look to that organizer manual, reach out to your membership to recruit volunteers, utilize your groups and their networks to get folks to your site. We can do what we can via statewide promotion, but we do encourage groups to really think about the local promotion and how you can get the word out. Think about different ways you could partner, college, universities, other organizations. Rotary, Elks, Lions clubs are definitely interested in getting out, scout and youth groups. And start working out the logistics and detail of the event. By then, that's where your timelines and your checklists come in handy. Those are available on our website. I'm going to turn it over to Will to lead us out here, but provide some tips for success.
All right. Thanks, Shana. And thanks everybody for sticking with us. Rebecca and Shana, the dynamic duo. So I get to be the closer here and kind of wrap us up. But I just want to talk about some tips for success, really some top tips here to provide as much advanced information to your volunteers as you can. More detail is always preferable. Give them a good sense and understanding of where to be and what to expect, what they should bring. You always want to imagine that someone who's coming to volunteer has never been to your Parker site. How will they navigate it? What roadblocks, hopefully not literal, but figurative, are going to be there? So consider directional signage or other posters and identifications about where they should show up and where they should be. I would really recommend putting someone in charge of greeting and directing your volunteers, a registration table, project information, or folks who are maybe coming late. That's all great and for the logistics of the event, but really, even just having a personal touch to the volunteers to make them feel welcome is a good starting point for some of the additional components we're going to talk about here in a minute. I do encourage you all to have a short welcome or orientation. Ideally, you can host it outside. In the April webinar, we'll talk a little bit more about this, but do keep that in mind. It's a really good way to not only promote the work that they're about to do, but promote the work that you all do day in, day out, year in, year out to champion the Parker site that you love so much. Keep in mind that, people busy, they're busy, they're here to volunteer and to work. And so make sure you have enough projects queued up to do that. I would recommend having a couple of backup projects just in case you have some real go-getters who are able to burn through your projects pretty quickly. Certainly double check your supplies, your tools, make sure they're marked and ready to rock and roll for when folks arrive. I would suggest also having a couple of project leaders or team leaders that you've selected in advance to be out and about leading those projects and can be able to answer questions sort of on the spot as opposed to having to run from one corner of the park to another to find you. This also would make it very stressful for you as the organizer to have to answer all of that by yourself. And Shane and Rebecca have put together a nice top 10 tips and a checklist that lives on the website, so feel free to check that out as well. Now, I love my park day. It comes, it goes, it's a flurry of activity, but it doesn't mean you can't leverage that for your own purposes beyond just the day event. So think about community relationship building. When you're reaching out to sponsors, as Shane just talked about, consider sharing information about your group. Are there other future opportunities for sponsorship that could be bundled together? Do you need board members? Do you need other volunteers or folks who can help participate or lift an event or an engagement activity? So think about how this activity and the volunteers you're about to capture and engage can be leveraged in that meaningful way. Shana mentioned Old Croton Aqueduct. They invited their local assemblywoman, Assemblymember Levenberg, to talk and engage with the volunteers, and she really spoke to the importance of making our parks and sites and public lands accessible and welcoming for everyone. That's the goal of Highlight My Park Day, and if your group or your organization believes in that, you might have a captive audience to leverage. Do folks even know what a friends group is? Do they know that you exist or that there are other groups like this that they can be involved in? It's a great time to share your information, let them know about where they can get plugged in or be involved. Can you capture younger visitors to kind of keep them involved for a longer period of time? And also, create opportunities to have some of those engagement touch points or capture feedback with your colleagues about those strategies. What worked, what didn't, who did you talk to, who can we follow up with? Do you have an email list that you can leverage then, again, to send them your e-newsletter or invite them to your next event? Again, Friends of Hamlin and some other folks I'm aware of, they've used lawn signs very successfully to promote the event and to keep engagement going. They captured a half dozen new new members last year from the event. Stony Kill got a really phenomenal regular volunteer that helps to manage their education garden directly out of this event. So it is possible and it is doable if you just put that little bit of additional thought into the event. So seeing volunteers as Isle of My Park Day attendees is great, but seeing them as long-term volunteers and members is more important. Consider developing a strategy to engage with them beyond this. Again, this doesn't have to be all on you. Consider ways to tap maybe your membership chair or your volunteer chair to figure out ways that you can pull them along and create more deep relationships for the work that you do to champion our public lands. And also, you know, try some new promotional strategies. I know not everyone feels like a social media maven necessarily, but, you know, consider social media ads, you know, hit the pavement, as they say, put up flyers on street signs and telephone poles and in coffee shops and laundromats. You never know what's going to resonate with someone or stick with somebody and help pull them into your work. If these methods do work, take note. If they don't work, also take note of that, right? Sometimes it just takes trying the same thing a couple of times or tweaking your strategy to make sure that they stick. Of course, encourage them to register for your newsletter or your emails or your e-blast, whatever that happens to be. Put an old-fashioned clipboard with a sign-up sheet on your registration table, but also be ready to follow up with an email, even if it's just a small personal thank you in the days or week or two after that event. Think about your sales pitch and what you're hoping these volunteers can bring to the table beyond just the day of the event. So with that, what's next? Register your event if you have not done that yet. We certainly want you to do that by the end of March, by the end of this month. The sooner you register, the sooner we're able to put your event and activity in front of volunteers. So it gives us time to do that promotion and that outreach that Shana and Rebecca outlined for you. Online registration for volunteers is going to launch on April 11th. Or sooner than, I'm sorry, April 3rd. Excuse me, I should be reading the script and not the PowerPoint. Great. So April 3rd, you know, we're going to launch volunteer registration. So be prepared to start putting out your own promotional efforts at that time as well. Be on the lookout from emails from us. We'll try to keep you as updated as is possible with the resources that we have available. Our second webinar in this series for Isle of My Park Day is scheduled for April 11th. There we go. I knew that was a key date. So we have the 3rd for volunteer registration and the 11th for the webinar. It will be at this time, and we will be focusing a bit more on day of strategy, logistics, and again, how you can leverage this event for longer term purposes for your organization. And of course, you have our team available to you. So if you have any questions, email us at isleofmypark at PTNY, or if you have any of our direct contacts, you can do that as well. Happy to answer any other questions and turn it over to Shane and Rebecca if I missed anything.
Yes, no, that's perfect, Will. And apologies to everyone for going just a minute over time. Just want to make sure we have any last questions we can answer. David, Walter, there are no banners this year being supplied for host sites. We will have a template you can use to create your own banners. I know some groups decided to do that last year, but we will not be creating banners. And then another question, how do we keep track of how many people are registering? That'll be that link that I send you. As soon as volunteer registration is live, you will get a personalized link that I mentioned for your event only, and that will help you keep track of how many people are registering. Yes. And if that is all, I will let you all get on with your day. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope to see you at the next webinar on April 11th. As Will mentioned, you know where to find us. If you have any questions at all, me, Rebecca, Will, we're all available. Please let us know your thoughts, and please let us know your project ideas, anything you're working on, and how we can help you or support you in any way. Until then, take care. Thank you all.